Welcome to Clearview. This is kind of hot up here. It's kind of hot. I think it is. I can whisper. Lisa, it's okay. Thank you. Morning, y'all. Come on in. We have some seats available up here if y'all like, or we have some over here. We're just glad y'all are here. That's perfect too. Okay, good morning everybody, and we are welcoming you to Clearview. We thank you that you are all here to be a part of us and part of our worship today. There's a few things I need to take care of, and we'll go ahead and do that right now. And as you probably know, Catherine is expecting a baby, and the projected date for the delivery is September the 4th. So all y'all will be hearing about that in just a couple of days, and grandmas and great-grandmas and grandpas and everybody else is just excited. So we're excited for Catherine and looking forward to seeing that little Robbie when he gets here. Want to let you know we have several prayer requests, and I'm going to go ahead and go over those with y'all. And if you'll bear with me. We have a couple here. Cheyenne Payne is seeing a neurologist, and they're asking for prayers that she will be having some tests done, and that is done on September the 24th. Suzanne Boney is requesting prayers for Linda Boney and John Boney. Linda has been diagnosed with cancer and is in chemotherapy. John Boney fell and he injured his shoulder and is waiting for an MRI. Good morning, y'all. Can you close those curtains for me? Thank you. And remember Stephen Main, he was dehydrated and he's had several rounds of IVs, and so we want to remember him as he recovers from that dehydration. Rich Havens, he was diagnosed with leukemia and he is in chemotherapy. Dwight's mom is in rehab and she's having a ball, and she's got the whole hospital wrapped around her finger. So she's having a good time with her social life at the hospital. So anyway, y'all remember her, though. She's doing really well with her rehab. And for all of you who've been calling her, she's loving it. So thank you much. We want to continue to remember Hope C. Miller. She's the lady who delivered twins 7 weeks early, and we want to remember the twins as well. And David Wright. David Wright is Liz's brother, and he found a knot on his neck, and he is going in on the 5th to find out what that knot is related to. So we want to remember him. The last thing I want to share with you is Gary Green, and all of you know Gary. His mom unexpectedly passed away after being diagnosed with cancer. She was diagnosed close to the 20th of August, and she passed away on the 30th of August. We want to remember her and the family. Her name is Belinda Green. Her funeral services will be at the Garden Valley Bible Church on Thursday, September the 5th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we want to remind you to be a part of us on Wednesday night. And that starts at 7 o'clock at our home, and we look forward to having you there. And we will have coffee and cake, and we will share a story and a lot of information from the book of Hebrews. So if you will go with me in prayer for this moment, we're going to remember the Green family. God, we just thank you so much for all that you bless us with. Sometimes it's hard to find the blessings in our sorrow and moments of weakness, but God, there's always there. Sometimes they don't come till much later. And I pray for this family, God, that they find those blessings as they go through their sorrow. I ask that you send comforters from heaven. I ask that you send your angels from here on this earth to comfort them and strengthen them and be with them and hold them close to you, God, as they go through this moment in life. Sometimes the journeys that you put us on, God, we don't understand them, but we find out why later. It's all about you, God, and finding you in every moment, in every way and walk in our life. And help us to always look for you and know that you're there. In Jesus' name, amen. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Who? Garrett? Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. If the praise team will come, we will get started and we will go with that. Sure. The thing is, they will not be able to hear you. We are on YouTube, so you'll need to come here. Yes, ma'am.
Friday, as many of y'all know about my mother-in-law. When we were in the hospital, they weren't giving her much chance. And we were just praying that my father-in-law got there in time because he was 245 miles away. That, it was like, come on, Belinda, just hang on for Mark, just hang on for him. And all of a sudden, and it was warm in that room because the trauma room, they have to keep it at a certain temperature. And all of a sudden, I just got chill bumps and the hair raised on my arms and I felt them. There were angels in that room. And her blood pressure went up, her temperature went up, and she was able to hang on for Mark. And I've never felt angels before, and I did then. And I just wanted to share that with y'all. Thank you.
Ready?
Good morning. I'm glad everybody's here this morning. If you'd like to stand as we worship God, have some fun. Turn to somebody next to you and say, "You sure look wonderful this morning." Father, we just worship you in this place this morning. We glorify your name. You are worthy of all praise and glory and honor. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. Body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb, the entrance sealed by heavy stone. Messiah's killed, and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. On the third, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, trample death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints, my gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise, O Lord our God. Oh Lord our God. In the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, Lord, we come, gather together to lift up your name, to call on our Savior, to fall on your grace. Hear a joyful sound of our offering, as your saints bow down, as your people sing. We will rise with you, lifting up your wings, and the world will see that our God saves, our God saves. There is hope in your name. Morning turns to songs of praise. Our God saves, our God saves. In the name of the Son, in the name of the Spirit, Lord, we come. We gather together to lift up your name, to call on our Savior, to fall on your grace. Hear a joyful sound that will offering, as your saints bow down and your people sing. We will rise with you, lifting up your name, and the world will see that our God saves, our God saves. There is hope in your name. Morning God, the songs of praise. Our God saves, of the Father. Ask yourself, who are you this morning? Are you a chosen child of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords? Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Oh, His love for me. Who the Son sets free. Oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Free at last He has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, He died for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Yes, I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. My Father's house holds a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house there's a place for me. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. They say sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. And right now, I'm losing that. I stood on this stage night after night, reminding the broken it would be alright. But right now, oh right now I just can't. It's easy to sing when there's nothing to bring me down. But what will I say when I'm held to the flame like I am right now? I know you're able and I know you can. Safe through the fire with your mighty hands. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. They say it only takes a little faith to move a mountain. Good thing, little faith is all I have right now. But God, would you choose to leave mountains unmovable? Oh, give me the strength to be able to sing it is well with my soul. I know you're able and I know you can. Safe through the fire with your mighty hands. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. I know the sorrow and I know the hurt would all go away if you just gave the word. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. You've been faithful, you've been good all my days. Jesus, I will cling to you, come what may, 'cause I know you're able, and I know you can. I know you're able, and I know you can. Safe through the fire with your mighty hands. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. I know the sorrow, and I know the hurt would all go away if you just gave a word. But even if you don't, my hope is you alone. Oh, even you alone. It is well with my soul. It is well, it is well with my soul.
Revelation 5 says, and then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides, sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, who is worthy? Who's worthy to break the seals and open the scroll? But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. And then one of the elders said to me, don't weep. Do you see the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David? He is triumphed. He's able to open the scroll and its 7 seals. And then I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing in the center of the throne, encircled by 4 living creatures and elders. And he had 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all earth. And he came and he took the scroll from the right hand of him who sat on the throne. And when he had taken it, the 4 living creatures and 24 angels fell down before the Lamb. And each one had a harp, and they were holding golden bowls of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song. You're worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, because you were slain, and with your blood you purchased men for God from every tribe, language, people, and nation. You have made them to be a kingdom and priests to serve our God, and they will reign on all the earth. And then I looked, and I heard the voice of many angels, numbering thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000. They encircle the throne and the living creatures and the elders. In a loud voice they sang, worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is he to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise. And then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth and under the earth and on the sea and all that is in them singing, to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb be praise and honor and be glory and power forever and ever. And the four living creatures said, Amen. And the elders fell down and worshiped.
Donnie had Deanna called and texted Donnie about leading worship. He mentioned to me about this "Is He Worthy" song. The most beautiful song I've ever heard. This is the first time we sang it. We hope you enjoy
Do you feel the world is broken? We do. Do you feel the shadows deepen? We do. Do you know that all the dark won't stop the light from getting through? We do. Do you wish that you could see it all made new? We do. Is all creation groaning? We do. Is a new creation coming? We do. Is the glory of the Lord to be alive within our midst? It is. Is it good that we remind ourselves of Him? It is. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. Is He worthy? Is He worthy of all blessing and honor and glory? Is He worthy of it? He is. Does the Father truly love us? He does. Does the Spirit move among us? He does. And does Jesus, our Messiah, hold forever those He loves? He does. Does our God intend to dwell again with us? He does. Is anyone worthy? Is anyone whole? Is anyone able to break the seal and open the scroll? The Lion of Judah, who conquered the grave. He is David's root and the Lamb who died to ransom the slave. From every people and tribe, every nation and tongue, He has made us a kingdom and priest to God to reign with the sun. Is He worthy? Is He worthy of our blessing and honor and glory? Is He worthy? Is He worthy Is he worthy of thee? He is he worthy? Is he worthy? He Father, we love you. We worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Jesus, we love, we worship and adore. Glorify thy name in all the earth. We will glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Spirit, we love, we worship and adore you. Glorify thy name in all the earth. Glorify thy name. We will glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. We will glorify thy name. Glorify thy name. Glorify thy name in all the earth. You may be seated.
Often when people have a stroke, one side or the other is paralyzed or hampered a little bit, like my left side has been. And also, many times their emotions are affected. And I'm already an emotional person, so I really have been working hard knowing that I was going to preach today to work on my emotions. And as many of you know, when I'm watching football games, I watch them with my son in Minneapolis. And I was talking to Joshua. He said, "So when are you going to preach next, Dad?" And I said, "I'm preaching tomorrow." And he said, "Oh no, you're going to be preaching after the Auburn football game?" And Bart said he was going to throw a book at me if I mentioned the game. You can go ahead and put this up there. And I said, "Yeah." And so we watched the football game together last night. And in the last 9 seconds, Auburn went ahead with a touchdown. And I've been screaming and hollering and trying to watch my voice so that I would have a voice today. And I still do have a little bit left. The time was about 3 p.m. Wednesday, October the 26th, 1881. The setting was Tombstone, Arizona, in the Arizona Territory, on a back street 6 doors to the west of the OK Corral. The parties, the good guys, the lawmen, were Wyatt Earp, Virgil Earp, and Morgan Earp, and John Henry Doc Holliday. The bad guys, or the cattle rustlers, they were also called the Cowboys, were Tom McLowry, Frank McLowry, Ike Clanton, and Billy Clanton, and Billy Claiborne, and Wes Fuller. The weapons, 1869 Colt revolver, a 10-gauge sawed-off shotgun, and single-shot pistols. The outcome, 3 bad guys were dead. Billy Clanton, both McLowry brothers. 3 lawmen were wounded, Virgil and Morgan Earp and Doc Holliday. The action. The day was chilly and there was still snow on the ground in some places. Ike Clanton had been drinking all night and was armed, which was in violation of the city's ordinance. Later in the morning, Ike picked up his rifle and revolver from the West End Corral, in addition to other guns he had. He told anyone who would listen that he was looking for Holiday or an Earp. And at about 1 p.m., the marshal, Virgil Earp, and his deputy, Morgan Earp, found Ike on the 4th Street, still armed, and Virgil pistol whipped him from behind. Disarming him, the Earps took him to appear before the Justice of the Peace, A.O. Wallace, for violating the ordinance. Tombstone Deputy Wyatt Earp then left and almost walked into Tom McLowry, and they were brought up nose to nose. Earp demanding, "Are you healed or not?" And the Lowry boy said that he was unarmed. Wyatt Earp saw a revolver, though, in plain sight on his hip pant. So Wyatt drew his revolver from his coat pocket and pistol whipped Tom McLowry with it twice, leaving him prostrate and bleeding. Wyatt Earp went to Hefferton's, bought a cigar, lit it, went outside, and watched what would happen. It was early afternoon by the time Ike and Tom had seen doctors for their head wounds. Both Tom and Ike had spent the night gambling, drinking heavily, and had not slept. They were both wounded from their head beatings, and at least Ike was still drunk. Around 1:30 to 2 p.m., Ike's 19-year-old younger brother, Billy Clanton, and Tom's older brother, Frank McLowry, came to town. They both were armed with a rifle and a revolver. They stopped in at the Grand Hotel, where they learned everybody was talking about the beatings by the Earp and they got mad. They said that they were not drink until they handled everything. They remained fully armed. Billy Clanton and Frank McLaury went to the hardware store and started filling their gun belts with cartridges. Then Virgil Earp learned that White was talking with the cattle rustlers at the gun shop, so he went there himself. And when he saw all four men buying cartridges, he went to the Wells Fargo office where he picked up a 10-gauge sawed-off double-barrel shotgun. To avoid alarming the public, he hid the shotgun under his overcoat. It was cold, remember, snow on the ground. From the gun shop, the cattle rustlers moved to the OK Corral, where they once again started threatening to kill the Earps. Cochise County Sheriff Johnny Behan, who was a friend of these rustlers, woke up about 1:30 p.m. from a late night poker game, and he went to get a shave at the barber shop. That's where he learned that the cattle rustlers were in town and armed. He quickly finished his shave, and he went out to locate the bad guys. At about 2:30 p.m., he found Frank Lowry holding his horse, and he saw Ike and Tom McLaury. He walked there with Frank. He told them that they had to give up their weapons. Ike Clanton said he wasn't armed, and Tom McLaury pulled open his coat to show he wasn't carrying a weapon. But Frank insisted that he would give up his gun only after the marshals and the Earps were disarmed. Virgil had called Doc Holloway earlier that morning to help him, and he met Doc Holliday and gave the shotgun to him, and Doc hid it under his coat. Virgil took Holliday's walking cane in return. As usual, the Earps carried their revolvers in their coats or in the waistband of their pants. White Earp was carrying a .44 caliber American 1869 Smith & Wesson revolver. Holliday was carrying a nickel-plated pistol in a holster, but this was concealed by his long coat, as was the shotgun. And near the corner of 4th Street and Fremont Street, the Earps ran into Sheriff Behan. Behan said that he had disarmed the rustlers. The Earps walked further down the street and came in full view of the bad guys in the lot. When the Earps approached the lot, the four lawmen initially faced 6 cattle rustlers. When the bad guys saw the lawmen, they stepped to within about 6 to 10 feet face to face. Virgil Earp was on the left of the Earp party, and he was not expecting a fight. He thought they were unarmed. White, too, wasn't expecting a fight, and he had moved his holster to the other side of his body. His revolver to the other side of his body. Billy Clanton and Frank McLaury wore revolvers and holsters on their belt. When Virgil saw the cattle rustlers, he immediately commanded them to throw up your hands. I want your gun. Virgil and White both saw Frank McLaury and Billy Clanton draw their guns, cock their single-shot revolver. And he said, "Hold on, I don't mean that." And who started shooting first is not certain. 2 shots went off together. Billy Clanton's was one of them. The 6 or 7 men with guns fired about 30 shots in around 30 seconds. If you watched any of the movies, the fights were much longer than that, but it wouldn't be much of a movie if it was a 30-second fight shootout. Billy Clanton leveled his pistol at White Earp, but White didn't aim at him. He knew Frank McLowry had a reputation of being a very good shot and a dangerous man, so he aimed at Frank McLowry. Wyatt Earp shot Frank in the stomach, and general firing immediately broke out, and the horse that Tom McLowry held jumped to one side. Tom followed the horse's movements, trying to hide behind the horse, and he fired once or twice over the horse's back. Doc Holliday drew the double-barrel shotgun from under his long coat, stepped around Tom McLowry's horse, and shot him in the chest at close range. Frank and Billy were still standing and shooting. After shooting Tom, Holliday tossed Earp for several months, drew a hidden pistol. He fired, and then he ran through the front door of the boarding house and escaped unwounded. Morgan Earp fired almost immediately. As Billy Clanton drew his gun right-handed, Morgan's shot hit him in the right wrist, disabling his hand. He shifted his revolver to his left hand and continued firing until it was empty. Morgan Earp tripped and fell over a newly buried water line, and he continued to fire from the ground. Wyatt Earp shot Frank McLowry in the abdomen, and Frank took his horse by the rein and struggled across the street. He tried to grab his rifle from the scabbard, but he lost control of the horse. Frank and Holliday exchanged shots, and Frank hit Holliday in his pistol pocket, grazing him. Morgan Earp picked himself up and also fired at Frank. Frank fell to the sidewalk on the other side of the street. Though wounded, Billy Clanton and Frank McLowry continued shooting. One of them, perhaps Billy, shot Morgan Earp across the back, a wound that went through both shoulders and clipped the vertebrae. Morgan went down for a minute before picking himself up. Billy shot Virgil Earp in the calf. Virgil, though hit, fired his next shot at Billy Clanton. Frank, now entirely across the street, still walking at a good pace, fired twice before he was shot in the head under the right ear. He died where he fell. Billy Clanton was shot in the wrist and in the chest and in the abdomen, and after a minute or two, he slumped to a shooting position where he died. Passers-by carried Billy Clanton into the house where Tom had been taken. Billy was in considerable pain, asked for a doctor and some morphine. He told them, "They've murdered me." Chased the crowd away from the door. "I need some air." Billy gasped for air, and someone heard him say, "Go away, let me die." And he did. I've told you that story to make a comparison. The time, about 2,000 years ago, immediately after Jesus' baptism by John in the River Jordan. The setting is the wilderness, 1.5 miles due west of the Jordan River, and the Quintanian Mountains that's 5 kilometers northwest of Jericho on the northern bank. The parties, the good guy Jesus, the bad guy Satan. The weapons, Satan used the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life. Jesus used only one weapon, the Word of God. The action, fresh out of the River Jordan where he had been baptized by John, Jesus began his ministry and 3-year march to Calvary. He marched into the wilderness and started a 40-day, 40-night fast. Luke succinctly says in Luke 4:2, he ate nothing for those days, and when they were over, he was hungry. And I thought about that. I fasted often a few years ago, and I would fast 1 day, 3 days, or 7 days. So often I fasted 7 days, 7 nights, and I was always hungry. That would be an understatement. This has been heralded as the greatest showdown in the New Testament. Satan fires first. He fires a double-barreled temptation point blank at Jesus. If you are the Son of God, tell this stone to become bread. This was the devil's two temptations in one. The first part of the temptation was for Jesus to prove that he indeed was the Son of God. But God had already spoken that from heaven when Jesus came up out of the Jordan. There was no need to prove it again. The second part was an appeal to Jesus' physical hunger. So easy to give in such a temptation. Jesus rebuts his arch adversary with a quote from God's Word. It is written, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every," and the Greek word that's in most of your translation is not in the Greek. Literally, Jesus said, "but with everything," or he said, "every," meaning anything that comes out of God's mouth. Mark and Luke both differ on what happens next. According to Matthew, the devil then takes Jesus 10 miles away to Jerusalem. He carries him up to the pinnacle of the temple, and the devil uses scripture. He uses Psalm 91 to test God's protection of his Son. If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, He will give His angels concerning you, and they will support you with their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. Jesus quickly fired back. It is also written, do not test the Lord your God. Then the two of them went back through the wilderness all the way to the high, sheer Quarantanian mountain, where they had a clear view of Moab and Gilead. Satan fires his biggest shot of all, offering Jesus a simple way to get all he had come to earth for without the struggle, and he could have it without a cross. I will give you all these things if you will but fall down and worship me. Rebuffing Satan, Jesus said, go away, Satan, it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him. Satan, defeated, escaped, fight again another day. It had taken only one day out of 40, but it was intense, and Jesus was exhausted. Physically, he had fasted 40 days and nights. Mentally and emotionally, he had faced off his spiritual antagonist. He was used up. He was expended. So the Father sent angels from heaven to minister to his Son. More epic than the gunfight at OK Corral, more sinister than lawmen shooting it out with cattle rustlers, firing scriptures instead of bullets, the definitive good against evil, our classic example of what to do. Jesus lived out in that wilderness setting our pattern, our model. Many theologians have divided the three temptations into three categories: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. But I have come up with something I think a little simpler. Number one, the temptation to a quick fix, or I call it the Big Mac solution. Number two, the temptation to take a shortcut. And number three, the love dare temptation, a pop quiz for God. Liz isn't here, but Wednesday night she gave a pop quiz. I wonder if she'd quiz God with a pop quiz that he'd been in. The first temptation was a quick fix. Jesus was 40 days and 40 nights into a fast, and he was hungry. I mean, mighty hungry. The temptation to turn stone to bread was offering Jesus a quick fix. It was like waving a Big Mac in front of a starving man. When I'm hungry, I have trouble just driving by on Whataburger. I don't know about you. Smelling a steak cooking on the grill still drives me crazy. We live in a world that offers us quick fixes all the time. There's a quick fix for just about everything. Many are not good solutions in the quick fix. Often our society looks for quickest or simplest solution rather than looking for what God wants to do. So be cautious of quick fixes. They often come from Satan. Also be careful of shortcuts. The devil is the king of shortcuts. Shortcuts often do not get us where we're wanting to go. Notice that Jesus trusted God's way, a way of scourging, a way of nails, and a way of the cross. Not a path that was short or simple, quick or easy. Lastly, Satan often tempts us to test God. Jesus refused to put his Father to the test. Yes, he knew that God would protect him, but he refused to put God in the place of having to. We do not have to prove God. God is God. He's the same today as he's always been. Often our temptations are to, often we are tempted to just tempt God in such a way so that he can prove that he's God. We're trying to try God out. We want God to prove himself. We want him to show up and show out. We want God to do God's stuff as though he needs to do God's stuff to prove that he is God. That's why 3 years later, Jesus would be the perfect sacrifice. He would not take the quick fix. He would not put the Father to the test. He would take no shortcuts, but rather he would go the long way his Father had laid out, and he would suffer and die on Calvary that you and I might live. And that's why we remember that sacrifice in this supper that we have today. Would you bow with me? Father God, we thank you for your Son. Jesus, we thank you for sacrificing your body and shedding your blood. We thank you so much, Father, for the blood that washes away our sin and makes us whole. Help us to take this in a worthy manner. In Jesus' name, amen.